Hi everyone, welcome to Wednesday Storytime presented by Pasco County Libraries. My name is Mr. Charlie, and I'll be reading a book and doing some activities with you today. But first, let's sing our welcome song.
Hi, hello, and how are you? How are you? How are you? Hi, hello, and how are you? How are you today?
Today's Storytime is all about the season of fall. Today's date is September 23rd, which means that yesterday, September 22nd, was the first day of fall this year. And there are so many different exciting things about fall. There's Halloween, pumpkin carving, hay rides, apple cider, apples, all that good stuff. One of the most notable things about fall, too, is that the leaves on trees start to change color and they fall off. And that's exactly what our book today is about.
Okay, this week we'll be reading Fletcher and the Falling Leaves by Julia Rawlinson with pictures by Tiffany Beek. Fletcher and the Falling Leaves was published by Green Willow Books, an imprint of HarperCollins Publishers. The world was changing. Each morning when Fletcher bounded out of the den, everything seemed just a little bit different. The rich green of the forest was turning to a dusty gold, and the soft, swishing sound of summer was fading to a crinkly whisper. Fletcher's favorite tree looked dull, dry, and brown. Fletcher was beginning to get worried. "I think my tree is sick," said Fletcher. "What's wrong with it?" his mother asked. "Its leaves are turning brown," said Fletcher. "Don't worry, it's only autumn," she said. Fletcher ran back to his tree and patted the rough bark. "Don't worry, it's only autumn," he said. "You'll be feeling better soon." But the tree didn't get better. Each day more leaves turned brown. One morning the wind blew a small brown leaf off of a branch. Fletcher jumped up and caught it very gently in his paw. "Don't worry, tree. I've got your leaf. I'll fix you." Fletcher looked around, picked up a piece of grass, and carefully tied the leaf to a branch. Just then another gust of wind ruffled Fletcher's fur. The little leaf shook itself free and fluttered back to the ground. Fletcher picked it up again and thought very hard. Then he poked the leaf onto a twig and pushed it down firmly. "Now you hold on tight," said Fletcher. "No more flying around." The little leaf gave a tiny rustle in reply. The next day a strong wind was blowing through the forest. Fletcher rushed out of the den and ran all the way to his tree. Lots of branches were bare, and little lost leaves spun everywhere. "Don't worry, tree. I'll catch them for you, I promise." Round and round and round whirled Fletcher after the swirling leaves. "Leaves? Wonderful! Just what I need for my nest," said a squirrel. "But these belong to the tree," said Fletcher. "Don't take them away." "The tree doesn't need them any more," said the squirrel, bounding off. "Help! Help! The wind and the squirrel are stealing our leaves," cried Fletcher. "Leaves! Terrific! Just what I need to keep warm," said a porcupine, rolling around. "But these belong to the tree," said Fletcher, plucking up leaves from the porcupine's needles. "Not any more," snuffled the porcupine, and away he rolled. "Help! Help! The wind, the squirrel, and the porcupine are stealing our leaves," cried Fletcher. Suddenly a flock of friendly birds swooped down from the sky. They picked up the leaves in their beaks and poked them onto the tree's branches. Soon the tree was leafy again, and Fletcher flopped down and smiled. "Thank you, birds! Thank you!" he gasped as the birds fluttered away. He lay looking up through the leaves at the sky and drifted off to sleep. But the wind continued to blow, and the branches still danced. The leaves shivered and shook themselves and began to wriggle free. They tossed and turned and twitched and twirled and tumbled to the ground. They brushed Fletcher's ears and nose and filled his dreams with a whispering sound. When Fletcher finally woke up, he couldn't believe his eyes. Instead of a roof of dancing leaves, all he could see were bare branches against the sky. "Oh, tree, I am so sorry," gulped Fletcher. "All your leaves are gone." But then he saw, high in the branches, one small leaf still holding on. "I won't let the wind steal that one," said Fletcher, and he began to climb. He crawled along to the last leaf and held it firmly onto its branch. All day long the wind blew, the branch bounced, and Fletcher held tight. "I'll stay with you, Leaf," he said. "Don't worry." But then, with a sudden whoosh of the wind, the branch bounced high. With a plip, the leaf let go and fluttered like a little flag, clutched in Fletcher's paw. Fletcher looked sadly at the leaf he had promised to save. He carried it carefully down the tree and back to the den. He made a cozy little bed for it and gently tucked it in. But all night long he could only think of his tree, all on its own. At dawn Fletcher tiptoed outside. The wind had finally stopped blowing, and the air was cold. The moon still hung in the clear sky, and pale stars glimmered. As he came to his favorite tree, Fletcher saw a magical sight. The tree was hung with 1,000 icicles, shining silver in the early light. "You are more beautiful than ever," whispered Fletcher. "But are you all right?" A tiny breeze shivered the branches, making a sound like laughter, and in the light of the rising sun, the sparkling branches nodded. Fletcher gave his tree a hug, then he went back to the den for a nice, warm breakfast.
I hope you enjoyed that story. I really did. I like it a lot. Fletcher didn't know that it's normal in fall for the leaves to fall off trees, so he was a little bit worried about his favorite tree. But by the end of the story, he figured it out and realized that change doesn't always have to be so scary. Now let's listen to a counting rhyme about falling leaves.
5 little leaves on the tree next door. One fell off, and then there were 4. 4 little leaves all over the tree. One fell off, and then there were 3. 3 little leaves where the wind blew. One fell off, and then there were 2. 2 little leaves sitting in the sun. One fell off, and then there was 1. 1 little leaf in the tree all alone. The wind blew and blew, and now there are none.
And next we have a craft tutorial where we'll learn how to make our own fall tree with multicolored leaves.
For our craft today, you'll need a brown paper lunch bag, a pair of scissors, regular school glue, and multicolored construction paper. Our first step will be to cut the strips that will eventually turn into the tree's branches. So with the bag still folded, we're going to go ahead and cut thin strips from the open side. So a good tip to getting fairly evenly sized strips is to first cut down the middle, and then cut down the middle of each section until you have your desired number of strips. I'm using 8 strips on my tree, but you can use as many or as few as you'd like. And with our strips all cut, our next step is to form the roots and the trunk of the tree. So go ahead and twist the bottom of the bag just below where we cut our strips into the trunk, and you can use the base of the bag, the part that lays flat, as the roots. Next, to form the tree's branches, we'll begin twisting and twirling together the strips of the bag that we had cut. If you want a thicker branch, you can twist together multiple strips, and if you want a thinner branch, you can use fewer strips. Continue twisting until all of your strips have been turned into branches. You'll end up with something that looks a little bit like this. Our next step will be to use our multicolored construction paper to make leaves for our tree. You can cut these out, or if you don't have the scissor skills, you can actually just rip them up by hand. I did a combination on my tree. Now all that's left is to glue your leaves to your tree.
And here's the final product. So when you make your tree, you can put as many leaves as you want on it. You can cut the leaves out or you can rip them up. Whatever you feel like doing, it's your tree. And if any of your leaves should happen to fall off the tree, that's just what happens in fall, so that's totally normal. Well, I hope you enjoyed our time together today, but that's all the time we have for this week. We'll see you again next Wednesday for the Hugh Embry and New River Library's presentation of Storytime. And with that, let's sing our goodbye song for today.
We wave goodbye like this. We wave goodbye like this. We wave goodbye to all our friends. We wave goodbye like this.